Welcome to Out of the Office Investigation into personal health actualization. This time we're discussing Akkermansia bacteria role in overall personal health. I'm Ramsey.
And I'm Puck. It's great to be here, Ramsey, because today we are exploring a single microbe that is really truly changing how we view the gut's influence on, well, the entire body.
It really is. We're talking about Akkermansia muciniphila. Now, for many of our listeners, that name might be a mouthful, maybe even brand new. But in the world of health research, this little guy has become a total rock star. It's being linked to an incredible range of health outcomes.
That's right. And our investigation today is all about separating the solid science from the growing hype. We want to get to the bottom of its core job, its system-wide effects, and what the most recent and most importantly human research is telling us.
It's a fascinating story, really. It's about a gatekeeper, a gardener, and an immune system diplomat, all wrapped up in one tiny microscopic package that lives inside every single one of us. So, we've laid out our investigation to follow this microbe story logically. We're going to start right where it lives, in its home base, and explore its core job as the gut's gatekeeper on the intestinal wall.
Exactly. And from there, we'll see how that vital gatekeeper role has ripple effects. First looking at metabolism, where the connections to obesity and type 2 diabetes are incredibly compelling.
Then we'll zoom out even further. We'll look at its role as a potential ally against major diseases, including inflammatory bowel disease, and its really surprising and powerful connection to cancer immunotherapy.
And of course, we absolutely have to explore what might be the most profound connection of all, the gut-brain axis. This is where the science gets really complex, but also incredibly fascinating.
And finally, we'll bring it home and get practical. We'll investigate how we can actually harness its power, from our diet to groundbreaking new supplements called postbiotics, and what all of this really means for the future of your personal health. All right, let's start at the beginning. It is just astonishing to me, Puck, that this bacterium was only properly isolated and named back in 2004. In the fast-paced world of microbiology, that's practically yesterday.
It really is. And there are a couple of words in this definition that are absolutely critical for our listeners to grasp. First, it's an anaerobe. That just means it can't survive in oxygen. That detail might sound small, but it's a huge deal. It makes it incredibly difficult to study in a lab, and, until recently, almost impossible to turn into a stable supplement.
And the second key is its address. Most gut bacteria are just kind of floating around in the middle of the gut in what's called the lumen. But Akkermansia is different. It makes its home right in the mucus layer that coats our entire intestinal lining.
It lives on the frontier. It's the literal barrier between our internal body and the trillions of other microbes and everything we eat passing through. That unique location is the absolute key to its power.
So let's look at how it actually does its job as a gatekeeper. It's a really beautiful symbiotic cycle. Akkermansia's main food source is something called mucin, which is the key protein that makes up that mucus layer.
Now, Ramsey, at first listen, that might sound like a bad thing. You hear that a bacteria is eating away at your protective wall, and you might think that's a problem.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But it's actually the complete opposite. By munching on the old mucus, Akkermansia sends a chemical signal to our own intestinal cells, which are called goblet cells, basically telling them, hey, time to make some more.
It's a perfect use it or lose it feedback loop. This constant process of renewal and rebuilding keeps the barrier thick and strong. And as a byproduct of its meal, it produces these amazing compounds called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs, which are fuel for our gut cells and have powerful anti-inflammatory effects all over the body.
And this slide shows you the direct results of that process. On the left, you've got a healthy gut, loaded with Akkermansia. Think of it as a well-maintained fortress. The mucus wall is thick, and the tight junctions, which are like the mortar between the bricks of our gut cells, are sealed completely shut.
Then, on the right, you see what happens when Akkermansia levels drop. That mucus layer thins out, and those junctions become loose, or leaky. This allows bacterial fragments, especially a highly inflammatory molecule called lipopolysaccharide, or LPS, to leak right out of the gut and into our bloodstream.
And this condition, sometimes called leaky gut, or more scientifically, increased intestinal permeability, is a massive problem. That leakage of LPS into the blood triggers a low-grade chronic body-wide inflammation that many researchers now believe is a root driver of many modern chronic diseases.
So, maintaining this gut barrier isn't just about avoiding a stomachache. It's really about protecting your entire body from a constant, low-level inflammatory attack.
Exactly, Puck. So if Akkermansia is the master builder of this gut fortress, it makes sense that the most immediate and obvious consequence of that wall's strength is seen in our metabolic health.
This is really where some of the most exciting and solid research is. We're talking about its direct link to massive public health issues like obesity and type 2 diabetes.
The first major clues really came from animal studies, and the results were consistently jaw-dropping. Researchers would take mice, feed them a pretty terrible high-fat diet, which, as you'd expect, makes them gain weight and develop metabolic problems.
But then, they gave one group of these mice supplemental Akkermansia, and something truly remarkable happened. As you can see in a chart like this, the supplemented mice were almost completely protected from the bad effects of that diet.
They gained significantly less weight, they stored less body fat, and they had much better control over their blood sugar and insulin levels compared to the mice eating the exact same diet but without the Akkermansia.
But Puck, we always say it here on Out of the Office. Mice are not little people. Animal studies are a fantastic and crucial first step, but the real billion-dollar question is always, does this actually work in humans?
And thankfully, we finally have a clear answer to that. This table is from a landmark human trial published in the prestigious journal Nature Medicine. Researchers took overweight individuals who already had insulin resistance, which is a major precursor to type 2 diabetes, and they gave them either a placebo or pasteurized Akkermansia for 3 months.
The results were, and I don't say this lightly, fantastic. Look at this. The placebo group's metabolic health actually got worse over the trial, but the Akkermansia group saw their insulin sensitivity improve by about 30%. That is a huge shift.
And it didn't stop there. Their total cholesterol dropped by almost 9%, their body weight went down by an average of about 5 pounds without any other diet changes, and they saw improvements in liver inflammation markers. This was the first concrete proof in people.
You're listening to The Out of the Office, with research by author Paul Bulow.
For me, Puck, while the weight and cholesterol numbers are definitely impressive, this number right here is the most profound finding from that entire human study.
I couldn't agree more. This represents the change in their white blood cell count. Now, these cells are the foot soldiers of our immune system, so a high count is a really good general indicator of inflammation happening somewhere in the body.
Over the 3 months of the study, the placebo group's inflammation marker actually increased, but the group taking Akkermansia saw their count drop significantly. That difference of over 800 cells per microliter is considered clinically meaningful.
This is the smoking gun. This strongly suggests that by healing that leaky gut barrier we talked about earlier and stopping that LPS leakage, Akkermansia is directly quieting that systemic inflammation that we know drives metabolic disease. It's a real physical, biological effect.
And that incredible ability to calm down inflammation and communicate with the immune system takes us beyond just metabolism and into even more serious diseases. For example, in patients with inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, studies consistently find that their Akkermansia levels are severely depleted.
And even more unexpectedly, it's making huge waves in the field of oncology, in cancer treatment. This quote here really captures the core idea that our friendly or commensal gut bacteria are constantly training our immune system. A healthy microbiome can prime our immune cells to be more effective warriors against things like cancer.
It's a complete paradigm shift. For decades, we thought of the gut as just a digestive tube. Now we know it's in constant communication with our immune system, and Akkermansia is a key negotiator in that critical dialogue. And this link isn't just a theory, Ramsey. It's being seen in cancer clinics with real patients. This slide shows a powerful association that has now been found in multiple human studies. Patients who start their cancer treatment with higher levels of Akkermansia in their butt respond significantly better to a revolutionary class of drugs called immune checkpoint inhibitors. To put it simply, these drugs work by taking the brakes off the immune system, allowing it to see and attack cancer cells. And it now appears that having a healthy population of Akkermansia acts like a training camp for that immune system, making it a much more effective fighting force once those brakes are finally released.
And the fact that we're seeing this effect across so many different types of cancer, lung, kidney, skin cancer, it suggests that Akkermansia is influencing a really fundamental part of our immune readiness, not something that's specific to just one organ.
This really brings us to the biggest question of all, Ramsey, and it's the one that connects absolutely everything we've talked about so far. How can Akkermansia bacteria support both mental and physical health?
Well, we firmly established its role in the gut wall, in our metabolism, and in our immune system. But the gut isn't Las Vegas. What happens there doesn't stay there. It's connected to our brain through an incredibly complex information superhighway called the gut-brain axis.
And the evidence in this area is complex, sometimes even contradictory, but it is absolutely fascinating. This is really pushing the boundaries of what we thought we knew about health. Yeah, the story of Akkermansia and the brain is not a simple one, which, as a scientist, is what makes it so compelling. On the one hand, we see a lot of evidence for a protective role.
That's right. In animal models of diseases like Alzheimer's, lower Akkermansia levels are clearly associated with the disease. And if you supplement them with Akkermansia, you can actually reduce the amyloid beta plaques that are thought to be a driver of the condition.
But, and this is a really big but, when we look at human studies of other neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis, researchers often find the complete opposite. Patients with these conditions can have significantly higher levels of Akkermansia than healthy people.
This has been called the Akkermansia paradox, and it's a perfect lesson in scientific thinking for our listeners. It is a classic case of remembering that correlation does not equal causation.
Exactly right. Those higher levels in Parkinson's and MS patients could be a compensatory response, the body trying to deploy its best gut-healing bacteria to fight the inflammation. Or it could even be an unintended side effect of the medications used to treat these diseases. The bottom line is, we just don't have the full picture yet. So with all this incredible potential, but also acknowledging the complexity, this brings us to the practical side of things. What are the key elements for harnessing Akkermansia's power? How do we actually support this beneficial microbe?
And this is where we have to circle back to that critical detail we mentioned right at the beginning. Akkermansia is an anaerobe. Oxygen is literally poison to it.
And for years, this created a massive roadblock. You couldn't just grow it in a vat and stick it in a standard probiotic pill like you can with lactobacillus or bifidobacterium. It would be dead long before it ever reached your gut. Its therapeutic potential was effectively locked away from us.
The absolute game-changing breakthrough was the discovery of pasteurization. Researchers found that by gently heating the bacteria, they could kill it, which immediately solved the oxygen and stability problem.
But what they discovered next was just stunning. The dead, pasteurized bacteria wasn't just stable, it was actually more effective at improving the gut barrier and metabolic health than the live version was.
It turns out that a key protein on the bacteria's outer membrane, a protein called AMUC 1100, becomes more exposed and more active after heating. And this is the protein that directly communicates with our gut cells to tell them to strengthen that barrier.
This discovery created a whole new category. It makes pasteurized Akkermansia a postbiotic, a preparation of inanimate microbes that still provides a health benefit. It's safer, it's more stable, and this is the form that has gained regulatory approval in places like Europe and is being used in all the exciting human trials.
Now, beyond just taking a supplement, we can all act as gardeners for our own internal ecosystem and encourage the native Akkermansia we already have to grow and thrive. And the best way to do that is through our diet.
Akkermansia has very specific culinary tastes, it seems. It absolutely loves polyphenols, which are those vibrant, colorful antioxidant compounds that you find in many plants. Think about the deep red of pomegranate, cranberries, and the skin of red grapes.
It also thrives on specific types of prebiotic fibers, like the kind you find in whole grains. And some research also suggests that omega-3 fatty acids from sources like fish oil can be really beneficial for it.
Essentially, a diverse, colorful, plant-rich diet is like a 5-star, all-you-can-eat buffet for your Akkermansia population. You can literally feed your own internal gatekeeper every single day.
Okay, let's bring this entire investigation full circle and revisit this central question. Can Akkermansia improve our mental health while supporting physical optimum performance?
Based on this entire web of evidence we've just explored, the answer seems to be a resounding, potentially yes. What becomes crystal clear is that the integrity of that gut barrier is absolutely foundational to both physical and mental well-being.
That's right. By strengthening that barrier, Akkermansia dials down the inflammatory noise that can disrupt everything from our metabolic signaling to our brain function. It helps create the underlying conditions for both the body and the mind to flourish.
You're listening to The Out of the Office with research by author Paul Buehler.
That's the perfect way to phrase it, Puck. Akkermansia aligns our bodies for a healthy environment, which in turn supports both mental and physical success. It's not about one single benefit, but about helping restore a fundamental state of balance.
This is precisely why understanding the Akkermansia bacteria role in overall personal health and how to make healthy daily choices for our diet, behaviors, and even medical care is so critical to our physical and mental health.
Exactly. The story of Akkermansia suggests our body's health is deeply connected to our diet, our actions, our nutrition, sunlight, fresh air, our personal energy, and even our clarity routine. That alignment of our actions, words, and thoughts. It's a truly holistic system. This visual does a fantastic job of summarizing that holistic impact we're talking about. You can see it all starts with that foundational slice, the gut barrier.
And right from that foundation, its influence just radiates outward. It helps regulate our metabolism, it educates our immune system, and it communicates with our brain, all of which contributes to that final, all-important slice, our overall well-being.
It is just a powerful reminder that we aren't just what we eat, but really what we feed the trillions of microbes that are our essential partners in health. You know, I absolutely love this concept of a keystone species. In ecology, that's an organism like the wolf in Yellowstone National Park, whose presence has a disproportionately large, stabilizing effect on its entire environment.
That is a perfect analogy. All the evidence we have suggests that Akkermansia is a keystone species for the human gut ecosystem. When it's thriving, the entire community of microbes tends to be healthier and much more resilient.
Which is exactly why we can state with confidence that Akkermansia can be linked to an overall healthy body. Its abundance can really be seen as a kind of barometer for the general state of our internal health. And this final question is what makes this entire field so incredibly exciting. For the last 20 years or so, personalized medicine has been all about our human DNA, our genome.
But our genes, for the most part, are a fixed blueprint. Our microbiome, on the other hand, is a dynamic, living garden. It can be tended, it can be cultivated, and it can be profoundly changed by our daily choices.
We are definitely moving beyond generic one-size-fits-all probiotics into a brand new era of precision microbiomes. we can identify specific, powerful strains like Akkermansia and potentially use them to target individual health needs.
The research is still young and evolving rapidly, but the potential to use these tiny tenets inside us as powerful tools to fine-tune our health from our metabolism all the way to our minds is undeniably one of the most promising frontiers in medicine today.